Okay, so by now you should see the power of just having a meal plan, a meal template, a blueprint for your day, and no longer just have this IIFYM macro approach. And maybe you're in, neither of those categories. And, still the take home here is that you need to be intentional about your food and about the plan for the day. There is no winging it. If the goal even is just to be healthy, never mind fat loss. If the goal is fat loss, you've got to be really intentional around that day. So listen, just let me repeat that. Even if right now your goal is to be healthy and maybe you're not chasing fat loss, you still need to have a meal plan. You would never ever leave your house in the morning with an empty tank of gas and go, well, I mean, I guess I'll just like hope that I find a place on the way. No, you'd probably be like Googling or Wazing and seeing like what's the, closest place, how many, gallons till I'm completely empty. You'd not want to risk that, right? Yet there's so many of us that are waking up with no plan. So, off my soapbox with that, you need to have that, meal plan. So, if you've not done that from this point, I suggest you go watch my hour-long class on first how to build your initial diet slash meal plan, meal template. So you have that as you're coming into this class or this quick, lesson. Okay. So we know now, okay, we got to have a meal plan, but it's got to have some options in it because we already know like hyper tracking with the MyFitnessPal approach and just looking at your your macros and going meal to meal is just it's not sustainable. I spent so much time in these food log places that it's exhausting. But we also know that deciding meal to meal is not sustainable either. The decision fatigue, we get bored with it. So like even if you just have like this initial meal plan, that is not sustainable either. We need to have some variety and we should want some variety in our diet as well. But then taking it a step further, because you might be a one-to-one client like watching this right now. Maybe you're even in like Look Like You Train where you've been following these meal templates that we've provided in there, but using the food sub calculator long term without meal cards. I'm not saying, I think for a while people should use just the food sub calculator and not get too crazy with all these meal cards, especially when we're in a fat loss phase. But you need to, know that long term, without these meal cards, you're still just substituting another form of going back and forth into this like tracking system, which is just very number focused. You want to get away from that. Okay. So this is why you want to be here. Okay. So if you already have a meal plan, and you should, if you're staying watching this video, look at your meal plan right now and first ask yourself, like, just in terms of from when you wake up to sleep, in a perfect world, what would a day of eating look like in terms of the timing of it? Are you hungry right when you wake up? Or are you someone like, when I think about it, I really like to start a little bit later. Just think about that for a minute. And then also ask yourself, okay, well, in a perfect world, what food items would I have at each meal? Okay, so that's what we like to ask our clients as we're building that initial diet. And we usually just say something like, hey, in a perfect world, what would the layout of your day look like, or your meals look like? What would you be eating? Some of them come back and just give, like, oh, I'd like to have 5 meals. They don't realize the details of it. And this is where we go back and forth and we start to build something based on that. So like this client here, for example, and, we do build 2 templates, a training day and an off day. So you'd see with a training day, there's going to be a post-workout meal there. This one that I'm showing you doesn't have a post-workout meal, so you know that this is an off day meal template of hers. And these were the client's wants. She wanted to eat 5 meals, 2 of them being smaller snacks. She wanted to have her coffee and be able to have creamer put in it, so we made sure to build that in. She said that, hey, I prefer no meat at my snack meals. I like Greek yogurt. I like cottage cheese. I like, protein powder. And by the way, here's my protein powder, and then she also said, oh, and by the way, I do love to have like a sandwich at lunch. That'd be pretty awesome. And if possible, if I could be able to interchange lunch and dinner, could we just make them the same calories? That way, if I ever needed to swap them, or my family was having tacos for dinner and I know my lunch meal has that carb built in, like I'd just like to be able to swap them here and there. I'm like, perfect. Thank you for and then some people don't know this at first, and maybe you don't know this at first, but it is kind of pausing and saying, in the perfect world, whether I'm dieting or not, keep that in mind, okay? Like, this is what I'd like to eat like. And then we build it from there. And so this is what I came up for her, right? But again, if you're using the templates in the group, you're going to see that you're going to want to start subbing things in and out. Maybe you're just watching this for the first time and you're like, okay, I need to get on this train. You're going to want to go build this, okay? So even if you've tracked in MyFitnessPal, you're going to want to go at least put everything in writing or type it like this, but put it all in writing. And then using our food substitution calculator that Eric's already shown you, you're going to go through and we're going to start that meal card, process. Okay. So we've already established like, okay, we do need the flexibility. This is what made IIFYM so popular. I mean, I know when I was introduced to it, I was really excited to be like, oh my gosh, I can have these things. However, the flexibility became the hindrance. Like, it's a lot of tracking. I found that my decision fatigue, I would not make great decisions. I didn't really have like a home base meal plan. I mean, I had a lot of favorites in there, but every day I was making those decisions, right? And it just became exhausting. So we do need the flexibility. Don't get me wrong. I don't want someone to stick with this meal plan right here. We do say the first 2 weeks, hey, stick to this as close to possible just to prove your follow through. But after that, it's like open it up to flexibility. But we need to have some structure to it still. We need to still remember that this isn't about moving to IIFYM one day and only having 2 meals and just like gorging ourselves, right? It's still keeping that consistency throughout the day. And this is why you bring in the meal cards, okay? So creating meal cards first is by taking that meal plan that you've just built, that first initial like, hey, this is what I like on a perfect day when I'm being my best self, taking that meal template or knowing like, hey, maybe you already know a meal you're already struggling with, like, Amy, I'm going to work on dinner first, and creating meal cards that match up with calories while prioritizing protein. Yes, you're going to hopefully sub each one and make meal cards initially with that, but then you're going to see as I teach you, you're also going to build in a Chick-fil-A meal card and maybe a homemade soup or something that you have meal card, okay? So you're going to take that initial plan. So if you typed it out, great. If you wrote it out, it's going to look something like I have up here in this first box, which is like, you've got your amount of your protein, if you're having a carb, if you're having a fat. And then, of course, we don't factor in fibrous veggies into like the calories. You should just be eating, a few cups of fibrous veggies every day. And I certainly don't want to be counting that in my calories. Like, just enjoy them. Just have, 2 to 4 cups a day so that you do have those. But we don't factor that in there. So we're just going to take these first 3 things. And first and foremost, because you want to find out your numbers. And by numbers, I mean your calories, your for each item on your meal plan. And then whatever macronutrient it's coming from. So like if it's the chicken, it's going to be a protein, the couscous is going to be a carb, and the cashews are going to be a fat. And we're going to track that as well on these meal cards so that you always know this is home base here, which essentially the home base really is 509 calories. And I always like to give a little bit of grace here. Like, so if your meal plan calls for at this meal 39 grams of protein, which this one does, then I'm going to tell you when you're subbing or making, an alternate meal, you just want to do never go below about the 70% mark, meaning like 70% of my total is what I should be really trying to get in here protein wise. So I really don't want to go below 30 grams of protein when I'm looking for subs. If so, I need to add in more to make sure I still stay within that, 70% of my total. Okay. So moving on here, from here, you're going to want to at least come with 1 single ingredient, food item sub. Those are the easiest ones to do across the board. It's just taking that initial meal plan, taking one of these up here and just go, you know what, I want to know what, my chicken breast subs for sirloin, my chicken breast subs for ground turkey, my chicken breast subs for basically all your, like your top 5 protein sources, and do those. And those are really easy to do. Here, we took chicken breast and subbed it for ostrich. We took her couscous, subbed it for beans, and we took her cashews and subbed it for butter. Okay, so she's going to have some navy beans with butter melted over it with her ostrich, right? And so while plugging these in, it also gave her or me the data that we need for the card. Like I said up here, I needed to know the calories of the chicken breast, the calories of the couscous and the calories of the cashews. And then there, if it was protein, how much, if it was carbs, how much, and if it was 12, if it was the fat, how much, okay? So I took those from those, items. Then you're going to start your first carb, because now you have your original sub item and one more alternate. And some of you, if you had a template already built for you, whether it be from your coach or you're in the Look Like You Train, there's already 2 alternates on there. So now you're really technically building your third, right? So you're going to take out an index card, break it into the 4 quadrants, okay? In the top left is where I put my OG. This is my original. This is what my numbers are coming from. This is what I'm subbing off of. And I like to put that on every single one of my subsequent cards, because you'd be surprised sometimes people transfer it wrong, or they get sloppy on their subbing. Maybe one of their subs was, less protein, and then they start subbing off of that and it becomes less and less and less, right? So keep the original. And then in the bottom right, I have the calories and then the breakdown. And then, since I just showed you this sub right here, I'm going to go ahead and just put in my single ingredient sub here. I can have the ostrich, the navy beans, and the butter. And then I went ahead and did another one here. I'm going to have steak, potatoes, and melted cheddar cheese. So right here on my first card, I technically have 3 options that I don't have to go do any more math other than weighing it out. And I'm not like going back on my computer. I'm not in my MyFitnessPal. These are done. You're going to get your little, I have like a recipe card box, either get one that's for index cards, or I have like a wooden one that I put, and I just have tabs, meal 1, meal 2, meal 3, and we have them on here, right? So we've already found some. But once you've created a few of those, like I call them sub for subs. This is like a single ingredient meat for another single ingredient meat. Now you want to work on creating substitutions when maybe you're out of your house or routine, or maybe there's things like, hey, this is when I make chili, Amy. I made it and now I know the amounts for that. How do I build that in? Or I want to build in these tacos and these are the tortillas I'm using. Like, this is when these cards really come in handy, because you don't want to be doing this just, again, meal to meal. You want to create one, put them on a card, and save that forever. So if a place that you go to is Chick-fil-A, this is how I kept this card up here to show you how I did the simple math. So I already know I have 509 calories to play with. So I look up the grilled chicken sandwich. It's 355 calories. It's only 26 grams of protein. So it's still really technically even under my low, like that, the floor is no less than 30 grams. So I'm like, okay, well, what else do they have on their menu? They have a 5-count grilled nugget. It's 80 calories. 16 grams of protein. Awesome. Now I'm over my cushion of over 30, and I have 435 calories. Still 74 calories left. I go through their menu, and they have a medium fruit cup on there for 70 calories. Looking at my meal plan, ideally I'd have a fat in there. Now, if I'm out and about and I have nothing with me, well, then the 70 calories matches it, right? Because technically at the end of the day, like I said, it's calories and prioritizing protein. But if you're someone like me and your glove box has a couple baggies of protein, or some protein bars and almonds in there, I can then just pull out those almonds. I already know that 10 almonds essentially is about 12 grams by weight. And I use that and stack it up there and hit my 500 and probably 6 calories. I'm only about 2 or 3 short, or 2 or 3 short of hitting my amount. And there I have a perfect sub. I put it on a card, so I already have this in place. I know it can be a decision that I make when I go out, and then you start making more and more of these. I have one here where here's again the OG, the chicken breast, here's the numbers, and I made one where I can just sub in a shake with an English muffin with peanut butter on it. Or maybe I'm going to have breakfast for lunch. Instead of have my chicken breast and couscous, I'm having a whole egg with egg whites, 60 grams of oats with berries, and I get a side of Greek yogurt. Again, all of them built in. I took the time to calculate and factor and then put them on a card so you have, more to come. For me, I've got an average of, like 7 or 8 of these for each meal. I mean, I've been doing this a long time. Also, you want to do these when you're at maintenance, because then it's much easier to eventually take away the weighing of things, because you pretty much just know what your meals start to look like over time, and I just rotate through them, okay? So remember, your long-term success comes from seeing this first and foremost as a lifestyle. You got to implement the foods you enjoy. This is why I said, hey, this is what the client was looking for. This is what she loves. you know, and then you got to take the time to make more options at all meals. Variety is important to have, but also it's important for your compliance. As much as people say, I don't need variety, yes, you do, right? So the less time you're in the numbers, the less time you're on your app and tracking, the less overall food thoughts, the less overall food obsession, less likely to have that decision fatigue and just make better decisions around it. So do this exercise and start making meal cards.